Okay, students, welcome to class. This is Mr. Collette, and today is Wednesday, February 8th. And so if you can just go into modules, go into the top module, scroll down to Wednesday, February 8th. We're going to do this amendments 6 through 10 notes in PowerPoint. Go in there, click right here, these notes, and open up the notes, make a copy, and I'm going to show you the PowerPoint presentation. And we're going to start right here. I can defend my rights in amendments 6 through 10. And so that's what we're learning about. Again, the first 10 amendments, these are the first changes to the Constitution. And we've learned about Amendment 1, which has your 5 basic rights: freedom of speech, press, assembly, petition, and religion. We learned about your second, the rights 2 through 5, including the Second Amendment, which is the right to bear arms; the Third Amendment, no quartering troops; the Fourth Amendment, being free from searches and seizures, unreasonable searches and seizures; and Amendment 5 is your basic rights to a fair trial. And we're going to learn more about that with Amendment 6, and then we'll learn 7, 8, 9, and 10. So we're going to talk about these next amendments today. And you need to make sure you know these things. And we'll have a quiz either tomorrow or the next day. Okay, so here's the text. This is the actual text in the Constitution. This is how the actual text reads. Amendment 6, VI is a 6. Okay, V is 5 plus 1 is 6. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury. So anytime you are accused of a crime, this is a criminal prosecution, then you have the right to a speedy trial, meaning it's not fair if the trial takes decades of your life, dragging out more time. And it has to be a public trial. And we'll talk more about this, but this is one of the best ways you can defend your rights. By an impartial jury. This means that the jury can't have their mind made up. They have to have an open mind before the trial, and they have to be willing to consider the evidence and the circumstances. Impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed. So you got to be tried where you commit the crime. They can't take you and move you thousands of miles away and have a trial there where you're more likely to be convicted by a different population. Which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation. So if you are going if you're going to be charged with the crime, you have to be told what your crime is. You have to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation. To be confronted with the witnesses against him. So if people are testifying, they say you did something, you have the right to question them. To have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor. So you can call people to the stand and they have to appear. Compulsory means they have to. So you can call people. So if someone knows you didn't do it, you have a compulsory process, meaning they have to appear and testify in your behalf. And to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. This means that if you're on trial, you have the right to a lawyer, and if you can't afford a lawyer, the government will provide one for you. So these are more key rights for a fair trial in Amendment 6. Let's break these down a little bit. Okay, speedy trial, really simple. You can't be thrown into jail and say, well, you'll have your trial in 10 years, and that's not fair. And so they have to have a trial in a reasonable degree of speed. Sometimes if it's a major crime, it still takes a year, but it can't drag on for like a decade or so. If it drags on too long, they've done this where they're just like, okay, we're just gonna let you go because it's taking too long. It's not fair to you. It has to be a public trial. And again, this is to protect your own rights. If they're going to have a secret trial and they're going to condemn you in a secret trial, they can take away your rights. They can choose not to follow procedures. They can maybe not grant you a lawyer or whatever. You have the right to a public trial so that everyone can view the facts of the case, and it's open to the public. Everyone knows what's really going on. This photo is basically from the Soviet Union, from Russia 100 years ago. There was a dictator named Stalin. Stalin was more cruel in many ways than Hitler. He's probably responsible for more people, the death of more people than Hitler actually is. And Stalin could sentence anyone to death or forced labor in a secret trial, and he often did that. And then he would do a show trial, which would be like a fake trial too. Public trial is one of the best ways to protect your rights. You also have the right to an impartial jury. Impartial means they have to have an open mind. It means the jury can't choose sides before they hear the evidence. A partial jury means they've already made up their mind. So an example of a partial jury is when it's about 1955, there was a young man who was murdered. He was African American. He was about 14 years old, and he flirted with a white woman, and the white woman's husband and a friend of the husband murdered the kid, and there's really strong evidence that they did. But on the trial, the all-white jury acquitted. They found him not guilty. They wouldn't convict a white man of killing a black man, or black boy, or black child in this case. And so that's a partial jury. You got to have a jury that has an open mind, that hasn't already made up their mind, and that's a special right. You have the right to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation. This means that when they arrest you, they have to tell you why they're arresting you. And if they don't tell you, they have like a very limited amount of time. I think it's often 24 hours where they have to actually charge you of a crime. And if they don't give you a crime that you're being accused of, then they have to let you go. And so you have the right to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation. You must be charged with the crime within 24 hours. So you also have the right to be confronted with the witnesses that are testifying against yourself. And so if someone says, "I saw you do it," then you have the right, either you or you can have your lawyer, question that person and say, what time of day was it? Did you have anything to drink? Were you wearing your glasses? And to try to find any holes in their story. And so in a court trial, this is called cross-examine. It's where you can ask witnesses questions about their testimony. You get to cross-examine the witnesses. You also have the compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in your favor. And this is a special right. This is called a subpoena. And a subpoena simply means you have to appear in court. And if you have a vacation that you're planning on going on, too bad. If you have to go to work, too bad. You have to appear in court, and you have to be willing to testify for this person because you know things and there's facts of the case, and you have to bring those things to light. So this is compulsory process for obtaining witnesses. It's called a subpoena. And this is just a way to make sure that justice is heard, that the facts are most known. You also have the right to assistance of counsel for your defense. This is the right to a lawyer. And again, if you can't afford a lawyer, the government will provide one for you. You have the right to assistance of counsel. And so we're going to move forward. This is Amendment 7. In suits at common law, where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved. Okay, so when they wrote this, they didn't consider that inflation would dramatically change money. So $20 might have been maybe $1,000 or something like that when they wrote this. And so that's if it's more than $20 and it suits at common law. Common law means, we call this a civil trial. A civil trial means it's one person suing another. In contrast, if you did a crime, then you would go to a criminal trial. And in the criminal trial, it's the government accusing you of a crime, And the punishment for that is you might serve you might go to prison, you might pay a fine. Okay, that's a criminal trial. In contrast, if it's a civil trial, then one person is just suing the other for damages, saying, hey, you caused harm in some way and you owe me money. And so that is a civil trial. And if it's the value in controversy is higher than $20, then even in a lawsuit, you have the right to a trial by jury. So it's saying the right of trial by jury shall be preserved. That means you have the right to a trial by jury in a lawsuit if you're suing someone. Okay, so common law equals a civil case. Citizens suing for damages, it's usually for money. For more than $20, you have the right to a jury in a civil trial. That's what Amendment 7 is saying. I hope that makes sense. Okay, here's let's see. Here's number 8. That image was a little out of order. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. So this is the 8th Amendment. So let's break down these terms. Excessive bail. Excessive means too much. So bail is simply money you pay so you can go home while you wait for your trial. You get your money back if you appear for your trial. Okay, that's bail. So you give the judge, hey, the judge will set like a reasonable amount. If you're a super billionaire, he might set it kind of high. If you did a really terrible crime, that also might be kind of high. Okay, but then you pay your bail, then you can wait at home, and then when you appear in trial, you get your money back. If you don't appear in trial, then the government keeps that money. They keep the bail. Okay, so that's excessive bail, meaning they can't have bail be too high. It's got to be a reasonable amount. If it's going to be really high, there has to be a really good reason for it. And they can't have excessive fines. So, like if you did a crime, they can't be like, oh, we're gonna charge you $1 million for speeding or $20 million for littering, right? So that would be an excessive fine. That's too high. Nor cruel and unusual punishment. And this is simply, this is an example of it. It's torture, something that's just too harsh and too cruel. And so torture, this is the Iron Maiden they used in the medieval times. They'd put someone in here and close it, and all these spikes would go into their body. And so they can't do that in America, right? They did that in the medieval age. They can't use a chair like this in America. These are medieval torture methods. We can't do that, all right, because it's banned in the 8th Amendment, no cruel and unusual punishment. You have to pay bail. And this other image, just want to show you, this was a famous Supreme Court case. It's either from last year or the year before. This guy, Tyson Timbs, was caught with cocaine. And the police took away his Land Rover and they impounded it. And his Land Rover is like a $100,000 car. And he appealed to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court was like, yeah, that's an excessive fine. Okay, you got fined for having drugs, which was maybe like thousands of dollars. But then they also impounded your car, which was just not legitimate. And so the Supreme Court ruled that was an excessive fine. And so the government can't do an excessive fine. All right, so Amendment 9. The enumeration means the listing. Okay, now that we've counted in the Constitution of certain rights. So we've listed all these rights that you have. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed. That means we're not going to interpret it to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So just because we've listed these rights doesn't mean that you don't have any other rights. And we can take away any rights that are not listed. It doesn't mean that. It means you have other rights and we can't list them all. So you have the right to travel. You have the right to breathe air. You have the right to speak. You have the right to play sports if you choose. You have the right to buy things if you have the money. Okay, you have lots of rights and we can't possibly list all the rights. One of the key rights that the Supreme Court has ruled that we have that's not listed is a right to privacy. And so the government can't track you on your phone constantly. The government can't decide what happens in a house between consenting adults in their personal relationships. That's all the right to privacy that's protected. And so it's implied, but it's not specifically listed. That's Amendment 9. And finally, Amendment 10 is the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to their states respectively or to the people. So this is saying if the federal government is not given the power to do something, then only the states have the right to do that thing. And there's this long contest of state rights versus federal rights. There's kind of a tug of war between those governments. The federal government is supreme, but here in the 10th Amendment, it's saying the federal government can't do everything, can't do anything that it wants. And so if it's going to do something, it actually belongs to the states to do that thing. So the states can control roads and school curriculum and marriage laws, and so this empowers local government and the states so that hopefully the federal government wouldn't become oppressive. This is the 10th Amendment. And this is just to help satisfy a concern that a lot of the people had that, hey, we've created this really powerful government, the federal government. We need something that still empowers the states, and that was their attempt with the 10th Amendment. Okay. So here's the agenda. Make sure you have 3 mastery checks completed from Monday, Tuesday, and now today. It's the First Amendment, Amendments 2 through 5, and Amendments 6 through 10. Make sure you score 100%. We'll have a quiz on this content either tomorrow or Friday. Make sure you've completed our last discussion check. Make sure you've completed our last discussion. Check your grade on the Electoral College. So this is the Electoral College discussion, and check your grade. If you didn't do well, you should do it because it is graded as an assessment. If you either didn't do it or didn't do it right, you should see that, and I should have given you feedback if you did something wrong. You need to have reply to 2 peers using the sentence and the directions. That's one of the biggest things that a lot of people missed. Make sure you have completed the Supreme Court reading. It is not that long or difficult. A lot of people are kind of skipping on that and not doing a very good job. So actually read it. It's not very long. It's a passage written for children, and you guys can handle that. Make sure you turn in all your assignments. If you're done with your work and you have scored 100% on your mastery checks, then you can play some iCivics games. And the links are located in Canvas, so let me show you. And so if you are in modules, let me just reopen it. Here's Wednesday. Here are the things that you can do in order. And so we've got these notes. You should turn those in. Do the mastery check. Make sure you get 100%. Make sure you finish the Supreme Court reading. Make sure that you do the Electoral College discussion. If you're done with everything 100%, then you can play these iCivics games. Stay in your seats. Don't talk. Stay on task. Work till the bell.